this tutorial I'm using 2 colors of yarn for the body, 2 colors of yarn for the eyes. I'm just using scrap yarn, and scrap yarn also 1 color for the beak. We're going to start off the owl with a magic loop. I hold the short end in my left hand and I hold out 3 fingers. I wrap the yarn around the 3 fingers and then I make an X over the back. Take my hook and starting at your ring finger, I go under the first one and grab the back one, turn it up, then I slide my finger under the long end, grab a hold of the loop, chain 1, and we're going to do 10 half double crochet for the first round. So yarn over into the magic ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. So we want 10 half double crochet for round 1. I have 10 half double crochets on my magic ring, so take that short end, pull the ring closed. So we're going to be working in continuous rounds, so get a stitch marker handy so you can keep track of your rounds. We're going to put 2 half double crochet in each stitch around, so instead of slip stitching we're just going to keep going. So into that first stitch, put your first half double crochet and then mark your stitch that you made so you can keep track of where you made your first stitch, because the one before it, that's where you're going to make your last one. So it needs a second one. So 2 half double crochet in each stitch until you get to your next stitch marker. I've reached the end of the round, put my last increase in there, and we've hit the stitch marker, so that's the end of round 2. So for round 3, go ahead and take out your stitch marker, and we're going to do another increase round. So in the next, you want 1 half double crochet. Go ahead and mark your stitch so you know when to stop. And the easiest way I can explain it is that if you're increasing, this is an increase from the round before, and this stitch kind of hovers over that little V of a stitch. That's where you want to increase. So 2 half doubles right in there. Now this one, the next stitch, is kind of in between increases. As you can tell, there's an increase here, there's an increase here, and then there's a stitch in the middle. You just want to put 1 in there. So now we get to another increase from the round before. We want to increase in that one. So you just continue 1 in the next, increase 2 in the next. I've hit my last increase for that round, and we've hit our stitch marker, so we stop. Next row, we're going to do 1 more row of increases. So take out the stitch marker, and you want to put 1 in that first stitch. Mark your stitch so you know when to stop. 1 in the following stitch, and then there's an increase from the round before. 2 in that increase. So you start in the center with 10, then you double you increase double in each stitch around, which will give you 20. Then to keep it a flat circle, you do 1 and then an increase, 1 and then an increase. You just keep increasing when there are increases from the round before, and you'll have a perfect round going around. It'll be flat. So just keep going around in that fashion until you get to your stitch marker. And I've hit my last increase for round 4. So at the end of round 4 you should have 40 stitches all the way around. It'll increase by 10 in every row. So you've got 10, 20, 30, 40. And now we just need to do 1/2 double crochet in every stitch all the way around for 11 more rows. So we're going to have 15 rows total by the time we're done with our first color. So just go ahead, take out your stitch marker, 1/2 double crochet in the next stitch, mark that stitch so you know when to stop, and just do 1 in each until you have your 15 rounds of 40 half double crochets around. Now all 15 rows are complete, so I'm going to cut my yarn, but I'm not going to pull it through because I need to attach another color. So now I'm going to work with the light pink. Ooh, come here. The light pink color. So what I'm going to do is start another half double crochet in the next stitch, but before you yarn over, go ahead and drop the dark pink one. Actually, put the dark pink one in the back and hold it down with your finger, with your index finger and thumb. Hold it down to keep it from moving, and then take the light pink yarn, loop it over the hook, and pull the light pink through, and then gently grab the light pink by the long end, and both of the short ends from the light and dark pink, just start working over those. Make sure they're pulled tightly first, make sure they're pulled snug, and then just yarn over, go into the next stitch, crocheting over these two ends. And since you completed your first light pink stitch, you can stitch mark it, or you can just look at it because you'll be able to tell where you ended. And we're going to do 2 rows of the light pink color, or whatever your second color is that you chose. So 1 half double crochet in each stitch around in your second color choice. Alright, so I've got my 2 rounds of my lighter color and still working in continuous round, and this is what we've got so far. So the side, because we're working in continuous rounds, it's going to be off a little bit. It's going to be crooked. It's going to stop at the end of a row and start in a different color. You'll just make this the very side, and you won't be able to tell from the front or the back. As long as it's on the side, no one will see it. Now we need to work on the eyes. So I've got my off-white or Aran colored, whatever this yarn is. It's not quite white, but if you have white, use white. If you have any color you want for the center of the eyes, I'm going to go ahead and do another magic ring. Cross an X over the back of your fingers. Grab, turn it upwards, slide my finger under there and grab it. Chain 1. I'm going to put 10 half double crochet into my magic ring. Pull my ring closed. And for the eyes, I'm not going to be working in continuous round, so I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch to the first half double crochet that I made. chain up one. Now I'm going to put 2 half double crochet into the same stitch, and then 2 in each around, which will give you a total of 20 half double crochets for round 2. I have my 20 half double crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch to the first half double crochet that I made, chain 1, and cut tail for that one. So I've got my 2 rounds for the center of the eye, and what I'm going to do is I need to attach a darker color for the outside of the eye. So right where you ended your last row, go ahead and put your crochet hook in there. Take your second color, lay it over your hook, pull it through, and with your long end, chain up 1. And we're going to be working in the front loops only for this round. So for the first stitch, you can't really go into the front loop, so go ahead and just go into the stitch itself. If you've never worked in front and back loops before, you see your 2 lines from your stitch right here. There's a front loop and there's a back loop. So we're only going to be working into the front loops. So 1 half double crochet in the same stitch where you connected. Then we're going to put 2 in the front loop only of the next stitch, 2 half double crochet. One in the front loop of the next, 2 half double crochet in the front loop of the next. So you're going to continue on 1 2 1 2. I've reached the end, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet that I made. And that's where we're going to end the row. Pull it through. And this is what you should have. It's going to curve in a little bit because you're working in the front loops, so it's going to have some curvature to it. That's the way I wanted it to be for the owl's eyes. And just go ahead and do that whole process a second time. So you put 10 half double crochet into your magic ring, double it, make it 20, then 1 more round of increases into the front loops only, which will give you 30 stitches at the end of round 3 for this eye. Now that you have both of your eyes complete, go ahead and sew in all of your tails, but leave one of these from the outer rim of the eye, leave one of these open for sewing the eyes together. So I've got my 2 eyes, and what I'm going to do is take see that little knot that shows where I ended that last row, and put them facing each other. One side has I left one really long tail on the end of one of them. I lined up where the rows end, and I'm going to take my sewing needle and I'm going to sew across 3 stitches should be good. I might do 4, we'll see. And I did 3, open it up, and I'll do 1 more, so across 4 stitches. Let's see. Yep, that should be good. Now I'm going to go into that last stitch 1 more time to secure it even more. And then I'm gonna sew it through just to secure it. Now you just need to take your buttons and sew them to the center of the eyes. And I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, so I'll come back after I've sewn on my buttons. So now it's time to sew the eyes onto the body, and what you want to do is just make sure they're centered. And this last round from the eyes, we worked in the front loops only, which means the back loops are still there. So what we're going to do is line it up, line the back loops up with where these two rows meet, and I'm gonna pick an inner one and start working there. So take one of the back loops and just find the nearest stitch, and I'm also using the same color as the body to sew the eyes on. And I'm going to go through that same loop twice just to secure it in the beginning. And get as close as you can. Pick the next back loop and then grab some stitches from right under there where the two rows meet. And then just naturally it'll start to curve around. Just pick the closest, as long as you're just hold the eye down so it doesn't shift and move, and then just pick whatever stitch is closest to you. Make sure you're not going through on the inside and grabbing any of the back stitches, or you're going to sew the the front to the back, and that won't be good. And just work your way around. When you get upside down, you can go ahead and slide your hand inside, and it'll make it easier for you to hold on. So when you reach the area where your two rows meet, what I usually do, just to save from having a big piece of yarn hanging out, is I just weave it through and then I'll pop it back out a little further over where my next stitches will start. About right there. Now when you start working on the bottom section of the eye for the left eye, make sure that you're lining the stitches you're adding over here up with the stitches that you added here. So when you get to this row, so that way when you get to the top, the eyes are even straight across and they won't be wonky. So I did them all the way to this row here. So make sure that these stitches here reach the same row. So now I've got the eyes sewn on, so I'm going to go into, pick a spot, push your needle through to the back, pop it inside out. I'm just going to weave my needle through just so I know it doesn't come out. I'm going to go back in that same place, opposite direction. Your other end, go ahead and cut that as well. And do the same thing. Pop it through the back, sew it through some of the stitches. Sew in all of your loose ends at this point, that's totally fine. Anything that's from the inside. Okay, now it's time to work on the beak, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I still have kind of a hard time with it, but I mean, it looks kind of cool when it's done. So I have some scrap yarn from my bracelet tutorial video. I still have some of that left, and I'm going to go ahead and use this golden colored yarn for the beak. Go ahead and thread your yarn needle. Now what you want to do is everybody's stitches are going to line up differently. You're going to sew into a triangle. So you'll start at the corner. What I do is I start at the corner, I find a spot, preferably in the center of a stitch, so it, you know, anchors it better. I sew kind of a triangle shape, and then I work into that triangle shape. So I'll show you right now. Go inside, and I want to pop my needle through. Oop, that's too far. No, about right there, where you want your beak to start. Because I don't want it to come down too far, and I don't want it to be too big. I'll go ahead and pull a nice length of yarn through. And I want it to come down to about right here. So I'm going to go in between the threads of the stitch. If you want to put it in between a stitch, that's fine. I like to actually go into a stitch and pull it through. Then find the spot on the other side from inside the owl. Tricky. Yeah, that should be good. Nope, I don't approve. That should be good. Pull it through and take a look. Go into that same spot. Find a spot right next to that one from the inside. Pull it through. And put it in. And just work your way across. There's no way I've found that it's going to end up, you know, perfect. Basically, as long as the beak looks like a beak, I really don't care. So I finished making my beak. It came up a little far on this side. I didn't make it. If you wanted to, you could just go ahead and continue to go over and over parts that are messed up to finish them in. But you know what? I'm just going to leave mine because I'm pretty sure I'm keeping this one, and I don't mind having little mistakes. I think it makes it unique. So I'm going to leave that. Take your two ends from the back. I'm going to flip it inside out again. I'm going to tie a double knot, not too tight, in the back because you don't want to alter the beak you just made. And then sew these in. Alright, so now that we're done with the body and the eyes and the beak, what I'm going to do now is we can stuff this little guy. And I have a big bag of Poly-fil here. I'm going to take the Poly-fil and stuff it into you. And then you can just squeeze the sides to see, do I need more, do I need less? So that should be about good. Now we just need to close the top. So there should be 40 stitches around, which means 20 for the front, 20 for the back. So you should be able to get 20 stitches across the top to seam it closed. With this pattern though, it could be a little tricky just depending on where your stitches end up, because you want the ears to be, you know, even to where the eyes are. So just kind of squeeze it, find where the stitches are definitely lined up with the eyes, and they'll close up right to the middle. Mine is pretty aligned. Do a half double crochet from the front to the backmost stitch. And I want 4 half double crochets, so pick the front and the back, just half double crochet right into it. That's 2. 3 and 4. Slip stitch into the next 12 stitches, front to back. And before you finish your final 4, I like to take my finger, stick it in there, and push some of the polyfill up to that ear area. Now just do 4 half double crochets into your last 4 stitches. And before you close the side, you can always put a little more stuffing in there too. And there we go. Chain 1, pull it through. Go ahead and squish and adjust and make it look at the ears, point the ears a little more. And cut my yarn, pull it through, and sew in this end.